Hello and welcome to All 32. My name is Arabia, and here we talk all things football. It's Thursday, so you know what that means. We have Coach George in the building. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing really, really well today, Arabia. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay, thank you. Um,
Ooh,
so excuse me while I just drink some of my drink.
what do you think? Okay.
A little ASMR for you there. Um, I wanted to kind of back up because we really threw ourselves in there with this whole offensive line talk. And I think we have to understand our audience.
Yep.
And I think we have carved out a very specific group of people who actually do love and understand the game.
Yep.
But people who actually love and understand the game aren't necessarily your average NFL fan, and that's okay. Like,
That's right.
I don't tell anybody how to fan. There's nothing wrong with a casual fan. Most people are casual fans of things. And so, what does that mean? Like, most people love their team more than they just love football. And so, when you kind of get into the nitty gritty of teams that aren't theirs, or even teams that are theirs in positions that aren't usually talked about, you kind of lose them. And
Mm.
so I wanted to just highlight the importance of the offensive line specifically. And when we do these offensive line rankings, we can say this team has a good offensive line, this team has a bad offensive line, but most people can't tell you why. Most
Right.
people can't tell you the difference between their guard and their tackle, how their center works with their guard, how is their left guard versus their right guard, how their quarterback performs in different situations. And they can't name three people on that line, much less all five, much less the rotational guys who might be coming in. So I kind of wanted to just ask you some questions and so that through this conversation we can highlight to the audience why not only the offensive line is so important, but just a few key things about each position, and we can talk about some people in the NFL as well.
Sure.
Um, and I know it's AFC NFC week. It concludes NFC versus AFC, and so we'll get to that as well. But first, Coach George, like, can you just talk to me generally about the importance of the offensive line on a football team?
No, absolutely. So here's one of the most misconstrued things about offensive lines versus wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, defensive linemen, DBs, whatever. We're always considered not a skill position. And unfortunately for us, we have to play unified as a group of five because if one person isn't performing with us together, then that's when you see issues. We always say, if you hear one of our names, if you know one of our names, that means we're not doing the job correctly. But here's the deal. The O-lines, especially today, have to be just as skilled as any other position on the football field. Here's the reason why. D linemen are better, linebackers are better, DBs are stronger. So because of that, defensive schemes are even more intricate. They require you to do a whole lot more things. So what you're seeing offensive linemen nowadays be so much more skilled in what they're being asked to do, whether it be run blocking or pass blocking. I'll go a little bit further with that. I can tell you this. The players that you do know and the players that you do love, they would not have the sexy names and the sexy careers without those five big guys up front. I can tell you that right now. We
Yeah.
block for everybody. We defend for everybody. And you ask any skill position player on an NFL team, and they'll tell you that they can't do what they do without what we do up front every day with no recognition.
Well, and like saying that, I feel like people would agree, but let's try to get to the real reason why people don't find it to be this like sexy, attractive position. Like, what is it about the offensive line that is less appealing to people than wide receiver or quarterback? To me, it could have to do with like people watch the ball more than they watch the actual
The
game.
trenches.
Like,
Yeah.
most people follow the ball. The quarterback gets it, and then the running back gets it, and then they do a touchdown, and they have a touchdown dance without understanding how that play develops. So, what, in your opinion, what's going on there as far as like the casual fans' aversion to getting deep into the offensive line?
Well, you hit it right on the nose, Rabia. Most people follow the football. And I'll tell you, other than the center, if one of us is touching the football, something went dramatically wrong, right? Something went wrong. So with that being said, our
Dramatically
job
wrong.
is something went dramatically wrong. If look, listen, me as a tackle, if you ever see me out there with the football, somebody fumbled, there was an interception or something, and I had to go tackle somebody and get the ball back, which I actually did once or twice in my
Oh,
career. But
period.
this is the thing. Most people follow the football, and here's the other thing about it too. If you look at how football is presented to you now, everything is stat based.
Mm,
Everything. You got fantasy football, the way that's all stat based. When people look at, unfortunately, how they bet on the game, how they look at the game, it's all about what the numbers look like. Well, there aren't
yeah.
very many numbers associated with O line play other than giving up sacks, the lack of sacks, those sorts of things. So, because of that, there's not really a whole lot to follow other than watching to see what we do and understanding what we do. But
Yeah.
without the ball, and without most of the game talking about us from a statistical standpoint, most people aren't going to know what we do. But here's the thing: the less you know, the more we actually have done for our offensive football team.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So speaking of like the less you know, and kind of acknowledging that there is a barrier, like an education barrier, and that people just don't, even if they are watching the trenches in the game, they might not necessarily understand what's going on. I just want to go center, guard, tackle. And, a lot of people might not know this, but you are my mentor and have served that role for a while now. And I remember when we first did our X's and O's sessions, one of the very first things that you outlined to me was the general job of the center, guard, and tackle. And, and like, so can you do that for the audience, like talking
Yeah.
about the difference in position groups and what they're responsible for, very basically?
Yeah, so here's the deal. The best way to do it is to think about it like this. Let's say I'm the casual fan. I love the Dallas Cowboys, right? And I'm looking at the Cowboys on offense. The one thing I want to know from an offensive standpoint is, are my offensive line doing a good job of establishing the line of scrimmage, right? That's the number one thing. If we are moving the line of scrimmage forward, then that means our interior three are doing a really good job of stopping penetration and making sure that we get to the next level blocking linebackers, right? The better offensive lines, they do that quarter by quarter. They do it every single day. The tackles, they protect the edges, right? So from a run blocking standpoint, if your offensive line is moving the line of scrimmage forward, then they're doing a really good job. Consequently, if you're seeing that line of scrimmage collapse, meaning moving backward, then they not doing a really good job, right? So normally what you see is the interior three are responsible for establishing the line of scrimmage, whereas the tackles, they're responsible for establishing it too, but making sure that the edges are protected in the run game. Now let's talk about pass protection. The interior three, the guard, the two guards, and the center, they're responsible for the depth of the pocket, right? The thing you want to do is make sure that the quarterback has enough room to step up when he gets the ball, whether out of shotgun, whether he's taking it from under center. Once he drops back, a lot of times he wants to step into his throws. Well, if he can't do that, what that means is the interior three didn't do a good enough job of establishing the depth of the pocket, where the tackles are now responsible for the width of the pocket, right? Everybody looks at defensive ends, and the thing is, they think about it. Listen, if you don't have two good tackles that can protect the edges, you have absolutely no shot. So the better offensive lines, you see them do that. Interior three, they're responsible for the depth and pass protection. The tackles are responsible for the width of the pocket.
You also spoke before about how the tackles in general are more athletic, on that offensive line, and how the guards are kind of bruisers. Go out there and be physical, and that's your job. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll even go a little bit further. So the center, he's your quarterback of the five offensive linemen, right? He's usually the guy, he understands all the plays, he understands all the defenses, exactly what the defense is trying to do. Now, honestly, all five of them, once they reach the pro level, they all have a pretty good understanding just as well. But the center sets the stage, number one. He is the very first person to touch the football on offense. And from there, he's establishing if it's the run game, he's miking. He's miking. What miking means is he's telling the guys, okay, who we're responsible for. The 4 down lineman in the mic, right? Or if it's a 3 down front, the 3 down front, the rusher, and then whoever we're going to mic, whoever we're all also responsible for. He does that, but then his 2 buddies on the side of him, those 2 guards, listen, 9 times out of 10 on a run play, especially when most teams run a zone, most lines are going to work in unison together to take 2 guys to block 2 guys, right? So that you have to be strong. You got to be brutal up front. You have to have guys that understand that it's going to be physical in the middle. And when you start looking at a lot of the defensive lines they got now, look, you can't have no weakness up in the middle. Can't do it.
Right.
Now your tackles are the most athletic. Why? Because they're chasing probably 2 of the best athletes on the team. Imagine having a guy that can't match Myles Garrett, in a backward foot race. That's what you're asking him to do, to match Myles Garrett in a backward foot race while he's going forward. He's got to be extremely athletic to do that. So even though you want them to be bruisers, they got to be athletes too.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I kind of have you seen that clip of Myles Garrett in their last game versus the Packers where the tackle told Jordan to run?
Yes. Listen, and I know she really well, right? So it's funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. But that's the kind of guys that you're going up against week in and week out, right? So I'm telling you, so if you think, think about this, if you think an offensive tackle does not have to be a skill position player, I'm going to ask you to put on the number 77 and ask you to backpedal for 4 quarters in the game and try to block Myles Garrett. Let me see you do it.
Yeah. Let's see you do it. And so that's why, and I'm realizing again, like, I really love the audience that we are building because they are some real diehard football fans outside of just their team, even sometimes outside of just the NFL. But for some more casual fans who are tuning in who want to understand why we may be talking about a random guard to them, why that's so important. And the reason why is, like you said, there is no, well, actually, and it gives you context as to why people are so impressed by quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, who have not had the same level of offensive line as maybe a Lamar Jackson or a Josh. Like, it's a different level of understanding and appreciation and respect for some athletes in the media who get the fame, but the offensive line doesn't get enough credit. So I think we just have to back into it and give people a reason why these positions are so important.
Listen, let me tell you something, Arabia. As a kid, right, I grew up in the Philadelphia area, Camden, New Jersey to be exact. And I was a huge Reggie White football fan. Like, I just loved the man. I loved watching him on Sundays because I knew he was going to beat somebody into submission. Like, he was just that dominant. So one day, the St. Louis Rams came to play the Eagles. I didn't know very much about the Rams. But all I knew is that whoever Reggie White lined up against, he was going to embarrass them, okay? So now, I'm a kid. Reggie's probably in his 2nd, 3rd year in the league, but he's still extremely dominant. The game is going on, and then all of a sudden I notice we're in like the 3rd quarter, and even I can remember John Madden. It was John Madden and Pat Summerall. I'm aging myself, I know, but they used to do all the games back then, right? And I remember all of a sudden, John Madden says, you know what? We haven't said Reggie White's name this entire year. And I'm sitting there as a kid like, what is going on? And the reason, and I can remember John Madden saying, the reason that you have not heard Reggie White's name is because of a guy named Jackie Slater. First time I had ever heard the name Jackie Slater.
Yeah.
And he's a Hall of Fame 20-plus year pro. Great dude. Got a chance to meet him. But when I tell you he was a dude, Jackie Slater was a dude. That was the first time I started respecting the offensive line. because
Yeah.
I saw him take Reggie White and make him normal. And if there's anybody my age or close to my age that saw that game, they remember the same thing. That's why you want to have an offensive line that can do all the things, because when you start thinking about who's the most important people on defense, a lot of times it's the guys up front.
Yeah.
Those are usually your killers. Those are usually your guys that can get after it. But you
Yeah.
have to have guys on the offensive line that can meet them step for step.
And there's so many NFL players who have long, great careers, all pro guys, second team, first team, Pro Bowl guys who are in the league for 10 plus years, who are offensive linemen who can go to Olive Garden right now and no one would
And,
have
and no one knows who they
no
are.
idea
Exactly.
who they are. They
Exactly.
can go to amusement parks and all this. No one has it. Like a lot of football players compare themselves to other athletes like basketball players and stuff and say they have a helmet on. And so a
Right.
lot of times, unless you are a bigger name, you don't know who they are under the helmet. But even more so if you are an offensive lineman and you're responsible for protecting Dak Prescott or providing opportunities for Saquon, and no one has any idea who you are. And I remember that being a point, like when you were asking me about what I wanted from the show, and we were
Right.
just like, I really want to put a name to these offensive linemen who oftentimes are just said the offensive line.
See, but here's the deal. Even with that, right? So I'm watching the Ravens and the Detroit Lions the other night. And if you remember, I picked the Ravens. I picked the Ravens to win that
And I
game.
picked the Lions.
And you picked the Lions. But look, man, now I'm watching the football game. And I'm seeing a masterful, I'm telling you, a masterful show by the offensive line of the Detroit Lions. I'm watching them run simple plays, but actually dominate their guys one-on-one up front the entire football game. Totally blew my mind. And I forgot, I honestly forgot, how well they're coached. They're coached by a guy named Hank Fraley. Hank played years in the NFL, played with the Philadelphia Eagles for years. He is an offensive lineman's offensive lineman. Watching each five of those guys do things that I teach my guys do every single day with ease. But then here's the question I have for most people. Name two people on the Detroit Lions offensive line. Most people and most fans can't do it. Now, they can more than likely name Penei Sewell, right?
Sewell. Yeah,
They
that'll
can
be their
name him, but
go-to.
go deeper than that. Go deeper than that. Most cats can't do that.
Yeah.
And the reason why they can't do that is because of what you just said. For the most part, our job is to do our job in obscurity. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to know who we are individually. But when you watch a football game like that, you're supposed to say exactly what I said, who has 30 plus years of NFL and college and high school coaching experience and playing experience. I stopped everything I thought about that game and said, you know what? Let me pay closer attention to what they're doing up front. So much so, I even got the video. I've been studying it, and I'm telling you, when you've got an offensive line that can totally dominate a football game, you've got an outstanding opportunity to win a lot of games, and the Lions have that.
You know, to be fair, one of the reasons why it's categorized as the offensive line, and you touched on it earlier, is because they move as one unit. Like, and sometimes it's about how all five of them work together as a one kind of unit, like five fingers makes one fist sort of thing. But
Right.
I think I would like to create more of a spotlight. And again, it's one of the reasons why the offensive line might not be a sexy position group to the casual fan. But if you're watching that Lions-Ravens game, you could point to Derrick Henry's fumble, or you could point to Marlon Humphrey allowing a touchdown. But if you really know football and if you're really paying attention to the trenches, like you just mentioned, the Lions' offensive line was dominating the line of scrimmage. And in some cases, I think we point to these skill positions and we
Yeah.
point to a secondary as the reason why a team lost a game. But really, it was happening in the trenches, probably from the first quarter.
From the first quarter. From the
Yeah.
first quarter. And see, that's the thing. You don't notice it. Why? Because you said it. Most people don't follow most people follow the football.
Right.
They're not looking at the trenches and saying, man, how are they doing this backside block? Are they getting this beat? right? Are
Yeah.
they are doing a really good job on cutoffs? Let me see they running zone. Let me see what the
Yeah.
combos look like. They don't even know to even think about that for the most part.
Yeah.
Whereas in comparison, you know whether a receiver catches the ball or not. You know
Right.
whether the quarterback makes a reception or not. You can look at that to the naked eye and it can look like it's right. But most people, even when it's done correctly up front, you can't necessarily pay attention to that with the naked eye and say, you know what, they're doing this right, or they're going to be dominant because they're doing this as opposed to what they see somebody else doing.
And that's a kind of twofold. What I think this show does is it allows people to understand people on an individual level. Like when we do Rookie Watch and when we do Trench Talk with Coach George, we're highlighting specific people at specific position groups on these offensive lines for you to pay attention to and understand more about, so that when you're watching a Patriots game, you could be like, oh, they're talking about Will Campbell. Let me pay more attention to him on this drive and see what he's doing up against, whoever that is on that defensive line. And I see so much value in highlighting these guys individually. And like you said, not just for bad things, but to highlight the things that they do well, or to just be like, keep an eye out for this person because, I think they have some potential and they're way more impactful than I think people are giving them credit for on good teams or on bad teams.
Yeah, and I like to always simplify things for the average person, right? And I
Yeah.
remember when I was trying to explain to my mother like what I did, like for a living, as a matter of fact. I remember one day she just asked me. She said, "You know, like I love you and you my son and you great and everything, but I'll be honest with you. Somebody asked me what you did out there, and I couldn't explain it to them. And what I explained, I said, Mom, I said, look, I said if you're building a house." And you got all, I said, what's all the things you want in the house? And of course, she went, I want a beautiful kitchen. I want a beautiful bathroom. I want this. I want that. I said, so let's say we create this house and it's got an ugly door on the front of it. Is that going to still make the house a beautiful house? And she's like, nobody want a house with an ugly door. Well, nobody wants an offensive football team with a poor offensive line.
Right.
Because that's exactly what we are. Like, we're the door.
Bengals.
Like, we are the door. We are the door. Either you're going to put a beautiful, strong door on the front of your house that's going to protect you, or you're going to put something up there that looks bad, that works bad, and have everybody break in there and steal all your stuff. So
Yeah.
you got to figure out first, man, if you're choosing a team, choose to see, man, do we got a good door or not?
Yeah.
Detroit's got that. Philadelphia's got that, right? Green Bay, they have that.
Yeah.
So you have to look at those things from that perspective to get a better understanding.
And I want to take this moment to just make fun of the Bengals for not having that and
Mm.
for putting their quarterback in a position to be exactly where he is now, unfortunately. And it's, you have all these toys, and we'll use the house example. You have a amazing Triple Crown kitchen. The
Yeah,
kitchen is Triple Crown. Okay, the
nice.
kitchen
Nice up in there.
might be
Nice.
the nicest kitchen in the world, actually.
Yeah,
One of the best kitchens you've ever seen. And we have an immaculate bathroom. Like that really
immaculate.
complements that kitchen. It's across from the kitchen. You got the
Yep,
kitchen, then you got the bathroom. The
yep,
bathroom is nice.
yep.
Okay.
Crown molding, everything, right?
Oh,
All of that.
oh,
All
everything.
of that.
All of that. Okay.
All of that.
And then the bedrooms, sweet. Nice
Man.
high ceilings. You got ceiling fans. It's
Yes.
fully furnished.
Yes.
See, oh my
Fully
gosh,
furnished.
the amazing.
Yes.
Now the basement needs some work. Okay, the basement
Okay.
needs some work.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but that door,
The door.
oh man,
The
terrible
door.
door.
Terrible door.
Holes, termites, no, not just broke down, no locks. Come
Yes.
on in. Just anybody can come on
Yes.
in. No locks,
Anybody.
no type of
Anybody.
restriction, and anybody. And that's not what you want. That's not what you want in a house. And that's exactly what the Bengals have done. That brings us to our first segment of the show, predictions. Thursday Night Football today. The Seahawks take on the Cardinals in Arizona. Coach George, talk to me a little bit about what you think about this game.
I gotta be honest. I didn't think very much of the Cardinals like coming into this season, and that's on me, right? Like that's on me. If you watched our last segment and you paid attention to what I was talking about in terms of like having like a really good door, they've got a pretty good door. Like they do a really decent job of doing what they do, right? And that's the thing. When you see teams have success, they're really good at doing something. But we know this league, you got to have skill guys too, and they got a really good quarterback. They got some really good receivers. The unfortunate part, they're going to use their best run. They're going to lose their best running back, and counter the rest of the season. So that's going to be a toll. But I do like what they do up front on offense. The Seahawks, on the other hand, I didn't give them very much of a shot, even though we talked about the AFC West being a pretty tough a tough division.
Yeah.
I didn't give them much of a shot, but they're playing really good football.
Yeah.
This is one of those games where I still feel like it can go either way, but the game is in. Where's the game again?
It's in Arizona.
The game is in Arizona. The one thing I'll tell you is that they don't got to travel very far. So it's almost like a home game, to be honest with you, for Seattle. So that part is going to be even. I think the difference is going to be what I still think the Cardinals have been able to do on offense, which is be methodical in the way that they move the football, but at the same time be consistent. So I'm gonna go with the Cardinals in the win, even though they don't have James Conner.
Yeah, James Conner is out, so Trey Benson is in. Benson averages about 5 yards per carry over his career, but he only has 13 touches in his NFL career, in the NFL game. So I think on offense, the Seahawks are starting to heat up. Sam Darnold is coming into the season playing pretty well after leaving Minnesota, but that Seahawks defense is the better side of the ball for the Seahawks right now. And I have it being once again a close division game. The NFC West was close last year. I think it'll be close again this year. I have the Seahawks winning this game. I think it'll
Okay.
be a
Okay.
good game, but I think the Seahawks are a better team than people are ready to admit, understandably, because the Seahawks are a perennial cusp playoff team. They're always pretty much at least decent. It can give even good teams a run for their money, but I have the Seahawks winning this game. The Eagles take on the Buccaneers Sunday. I think this is my game of the week. I don't care whose broadcast network said whatever was the game of the week. This is my game of the week.
Listen, I love what the Eagles look like on the interior. I do. They're five guys on offense. I will put them up against any defensive line in the NFL. Right? I will. Because they are extremely efficient. They're coached really well. All of them are tough guys. They are excellent athletes. They play well together. Now, that being said, what I've seen from the Bucs, and here's the thing, you can't discount what you saw last week with the Bucs and the Jets. Here's why. Aaron Glenn knows Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles knows Aaron Glenn, right? So with that being said, it's all about matchups and what you know about who you're going against. So that's why that game was as close as it was. He understood what Todd Bowles' weaknesses are on defense. So, and they exploited them to a certain degree. So I don't look at that and say the Bucs are, playing less than what they should be. I just see two coaches that know each other. That being said, the game is in Tampa, right?
Is it? Yes.
The game is in Tampa. Here's what most people don't understand. Playing in Tampa, coming from the Northeast, is a tough place to play. Why? Because it's humid. It's humid. So you got to deal with that. The Eagles, they're winning, but they're having to have heroic plays to win football games. Right? Now, here's the thing. I'm not taking anything away from them. They're making those heroic plays. But here's the thing I think most people still don't do. They don't give the Bucs enough credit for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Like Bake is that guy now. Like, he is not the guy that people thought he was not going to be. Like, he is that guy now. He's making scheduled plays on time. He's leading the offense. He's doing a really good job finding the guys when he needs to. I look for them to be really good on offense. Defensively is where I want to see them show up. If they can show up like I believe they can up front, then they give the Eagles an opportunity. Then they give their team an opportunity to play quarter for quarter with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to choose the Bucs based, A, because you chose the Eagles, I'm going to say that. But B, because I just think they just have an edge, and the Eagles have had to win heroically over the last few weeks. Can't sustain that.
Okay, so you asked me to choose from the trenches.
Yep.
And so I chose the Eagles. I'll start there and put a pin in that. You said that the Eagles have been winning from heroic plays, but we kind of saw a very eerily similar game last week with the Bucs and the Jets, where they both
True.
had these blocked field goals that ended up changing the game towards the end.
Right.
Baker Mayfield and that Bucks offense was able to drive downfield and, score a field goal, get a field goal and win the game. And the Rams not so much because of that blocked field goal that was returned for a touchdown. But the Bucks also had won from this, like, not heroic play, but like this 2-minute offense that Baker was able to execute down the field and to win the game. Also, I just touched on the trenches. If I'm looking at the team as a whole, I'm picking the Bucks because of Baker Mayfield. Not just Baker Mayfield, but they have this, what I would consider to be a two-headed monster in that running back room with Bucky Irving and Rashad White. And that ground
Highly
game,
underrated.
highly underrated. I mean, we talk a lot
Highly.
about Sonic and Knuckles with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and but I don't think people are talking about Bucky Irvin and Rashad White enough. They are both could be starters if they really, really wanted to.
Agreed.
So that just helps the pass game. They're just complimenting each other back and forth. Baker in the pass and then the running game, but also Mike Evans is out. They get Chris Godwin back soon. Mike Evans is out, but Emeka Egbuka is like that. Like,
He's
he's
balling.
nice,
He
a
balling.
baller.
He
So if
balling.
I put everything together on that offense between the offensive line, quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, like, it's hard not to choose the Bucks. And what Baker has been able to do over the past few years is underrated.
All right, now, okay, you confusing me and everybody else. Are you choosing the Eagles or the Bucks? What we doing?
Well,
what we doing?
I'm choosing the Bucks. Now, this will mark the second week in a row I'm going against the Eagles, and I have been alleged to be an Eagles hater. I'm not an Eagles hater. What I think and Champ accused me of just trying to predict their first loss. Like, oh, you're just trying to predict their first loss. And maybe that's what it is. I think I am just trying to predict their first loss. But like, similar to the Rams, I think the Bucks have an opportunity that not a lot of teams in the NFL have, which is to beat the Eagles. And coming up on their schedule, there are not a lot of teams that I would choose over the Eagles, but the Bucks are potentially one of those teams. That's all I'm saying. So I'm choosing Bucks, but I went on and on about how good this Bucks offense is, but I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention how good this Eagles offense is as well. Jalen Hurts is another person who a lot of people in the media discredit as a quarterback and say he doesn't have to pass that much, and he only had X amount of passing yards over 2 weeks, and he uses his legs, and he doesn't go through his progressions, and if his first read isn't open, he just takes off out the pocket, whatever. He's still winning games. He's still a championship, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and he knows how to win games, so whatever. Saquon Barkley, best running back in the league. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, even their tight ends are really great. So I'd be remiss if I also didn't mention how good that Eagles offense is too.
Listen,
but I'm choosing the Bucks.
And they are, and this is the one thing that always, and I gotta remember, I never look at the game as a fan, so I always give them some grace on this. When people get upset about how their team wins, and the thing is, like you mentioned something, he does not have to pass for 400 yards for them to win football games. Like, they've got advantages on offense more than any other team in the NFL. I always tell people this. Listen, this is a team who only has to get about 7 yards in their first 3 offensive snaps, first, second, and third down, because they're guaranteed to get a tush push that nobody in the NFL can stop, that I've seen them get 3 yards on. So with that being said, like, you've got to defend those first 3 downs like you're trying to stop them from getting 7 yards. That is extremely hard. That's extremely hard. They've mastered it, so they've taken that part and they've put that in their pocket. We've got this if all else fails. We also have Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts in the backfield and the best offensive line in football. Stop us. Period. That's what they can line up and say. Stop us.
Yeah. The Eagles have a personal chef. They have a trainer. They have a nanny. They have a chauffeur, and they have a trust fund. And people are looking at Jalen Hurts like, let's compare it to parenthood and being like, well, he's not a good dad because he's not working 3 jobs. He's not making all the food and cleaning up after everybody every day and driving everybody everywhere.
Great
analogy. He don't have to.
He ain't got to. You don't
Like,
got to do that.
imagine saying someone's a bad parent because they have a personal chef to cook the food and they have a maid to clean and they have a chauffeur to drive. I don't have to do any of that because I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
everything I need around me to do it for me. That doesn't make me less of a parent. That means I have the luxury of sitting back and giving my kids a great life. So Jalen Hurts,
That's right.
he's just giving his
That's
kids
right.
a great life. Okay, you can't fault him
That's
for
right.
having luxury. That's what he has. He has luxury. Just because your dad, okay, has to work 8 jobs and come home and cook, don't mean that he's any better of a father than Jalen Hurts. All right, that's all I'm saying. All right, let's move on to the next game. Okay, Colts-Rams. Rams are coming off of a loss to the Eagles.
Tough loss. Tough
Colts,
loss.
tough loss. Oh my
Tough loss.
gosh.
Tough loss.
Don't get me started because we're moving on to week 4. Colts are undefeated. Daniel
Yeah.
Jones is looking really great. That Colts defense under Shane Steichen looking super great. Got that rookie Tyler Warren that we spoke about on the show before. I think this is the week that the Colts break that undefeated streak and get their first
Yeah.
loss of the season. What do you think, Coach George?
Look, I admire what they've been doing over the first part of the year, the Colts that is. And I do, but here's the thing. What people don't understand is that I've always felt like the Colts have had bits and pieces of talent. But I've always felt like they were missing certain pieces to gel those things together. My biggest thing is when I look at the differences in how consistent they need to be versus what the Rams have proven to be,
Yeah.
both offensively and defensively, they would have to play a heroic game, in my opinion, to be able to beat the Rams. Also, we talked about the Rams coming off of a tough loss. They've got one of the best bounce back records in the NFL. So with that being said, I don't see the Rams dropping 2 games back to back like that.
Yeah.
And on the other part is, too, the Rams, in my opinion, they're Super Bowl contenders. And they're Super Bowl contenders because of what they've proven to be able to do offensively, proven to be able to do defensively, and outside of the block last week in return for a touchdown, they're also very solid, on special teams. So with that being said, I don't think the Colts can keep up with the consistency as the Rams can, so I look for them to win the game.
If the Colts win against the Rams, they'll be a few steps closer to actually being the real deal than I consider them to be today. If they
Yeah,
can go
you'd have
up
to
against,
consider them then. Yeah.
you would have to. You would have to. If they go up against, like you said, an NFC Super Bowl contender, then I would have to put some respect on that Indianapolis name and say, okay, they might actually have something there. The thing that will tip the scales for me is that they survive the week 10 mark. And week 10 is specific, but on the show we talked about how early is how soon how long can we say, oh, it's early? Like right
Right.
now we've only had 3 weeks of football, so we're like, oh, it's early, don't worry about it. And we asked Champ on the show, when do you stop saying it's early? And he said after like week 10. And you
After
can kind
week
of
10.
go like 4 and 6 and be okay and try to make things up. So after like week 10, if the Colts are still on this roll, if we got an 8-2, if we got a 7-3, even a 6-4, then yeah, we got to put some respect on the Colts name.
Look, listen, until you are 100% mathematically out of it, you
Yeah.
are in it,
Yeah.
right? The Giants won the Super Bowl years ago. I think they had a record of 9. They were 9-7 at one point and went on a crazy roll, right? So teams get hot. But with that being said, you're right. Champ is 100% right. About week 10, you usually know who's in it and who's out of it. Everybody's in it right now.
Yeah.
But going
Yeah.
back to this game, the Rams are one of those teams, they always stay in it from the beginning of the season, middle of the season to the end. I look for them to do that in this game.
Same. All right, let's talk about Ravens Chiefs. Both teams 1-2. One of these teams are leaving 1-3. I chose the Lions last week for this exact reason. I don't think the Ravens show up in these big games, and they aren't. When it comes to big moments or against really good teams, they just get cute or lose their identity and don't stick to what they're good at. Once again, I always reference the statistic from this Sunday Night Football game. Lions had 224 yards on the ground. Ravens had 85 total.
Yeah.
50
Total.
from Derrick Henry and 35 from Lamar Jackson. And things like that in these big moments just make me lose faith in them as an organization in these big moments. So I'm going Chiefs. I think the Chiefs get their second win in a row.
Yeah, listen, I think the difficult thing for me to admit at this point, and we just got finished talking about it being early, is watching the Ravens not be as dominant up front on the offensive line as I feel like they should be.
Yeah.
When you talk about them only having 85 yards rushing total between Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, like you look at that stat and you say, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
It's not as if Derrick Henry doesn't know how to run the football anymore. It's not as if, Lamar Jackson is inefficient at running the football. When I look at them up front, I'm not seeing them play very confident between the five guys. I just don't see that. I don't see that versus now. One of the things could be you watch the Lions team who they played last week look extremely confident and be very run heavy and have no issues running the football, even in run pass downs. You're seeing them say, you know what, this is who we are. This is our identity. I don't see the Ravens doing that, and I thought that's what they would be this year. When you get a Derrick Henry, you have a Lamar Jackson, you've got as much beef as you've got up front. Lean on people.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing them do that with consistency. Key blocks, backside blocks, they have to do a much better job of sealing off backsides. That's why Derrick Henry had to fumble a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Backside tackle didn't get his block. The fumble this week. Again, he's got to hold on the football, okay? But at the same time, us up front, the five guys, there's a lot that we can do to help him not have to deal with that. I'm not seeing them be consistent with doing that at this stage of the season. Definitely something they got to fix.
So are you saying that from what you saw from the game, Derrick Henry's fumble could also be attributed to the offensive line?
It absolutely is, because it's not as if he's in an open field and he's getting fumbled.
Right.
And he's getting fumbles.
Right.
These are at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
These are the line of scrimmage. So somebody's not on their guy. And again, I'm not making excuses for Derrick Henry either. He's fumbled in all 3 football games.
Right.
But the 2 most crucial ones that he fumbled in, those were defensive linemen who knocked the football out, right? You're supposed to have a hat on a hat so that doesn't happen. That's one of the reasons why, from an offensive line perspective, we always say, man, gain control and maintain control. Reason being is because at some point, the running back's going to come through the hole, the receiver's going to come through the hole, quarterback's going to come through the hole. We got to make sure they are so intertwined with us that they don't have time or the ability to be able to swipe and slap at the football. You're looking at those fumbles come from that. They've got to fix that.
So just to be clear, we both have the Chiefs in that game.
Chiefs!
Okay, amazing. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you on Tuesday with Matthew. Enjoy the games and be safe.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.